All right, good morning, folks. Waking up this morning to what looks like we may already have a tropical storm out here in the Central Caribbean Sea. Uh, you can almost make out a circulation here. This is the true color and shortwave IR mixed. This would be shortwave IR at night, enables you to kind of see lower level features like proxy viz kind of stuff. And I would say, based on what I'm seeing here, even though it's still sheared in this direction, we have very close, if not a close circulation already here. Um, some impressive outflow going this way, and the shear is going to persist here. So even if it, for the short term anyway, um, well, if it stays in the Caribbean, and even if it moves to the north here, shear is going to persist over it, but the system that it's getting organized, it definitely looks a lot more organized than it did yesterday evening. Um, I won't be surprised if at the 5 a.m. advisory um, they issue either a potential tropical cyclone or make it a depression or Melissa. So this is another way to look at it here. This is the you have the IR with mixed with like a proxy viz. Intense convection right along the eastern edge here, and you can see the shear impacting the western edge of the system, right? The fact that it's been able to organize even in the face of this tells me that it's going to slowly organize even more. And if it does become a storm here, the GFS solution is the one that actually comes to be true, because most of the other solutions we're having to develop further to the west. So maybe for once the GFS was right, we'll just have to see what the National Hurricane Center thinks. So let's look at the water vapor, and I can show you where the shear is coming, the shear basically on the system. You can see the drier air to the west here. You can't really make out the shear too well, but the yellows here at the mid levels. Let's look at the upper levels. Water vapor loop real quick. Can't really see it that way either, but how about simple water vapor loop? Yeah, that probably. Let's zoom out a little bit. Here we go. It's hard to really make it out even here. Let's look at this. Yeah, that's a little bit better. See the dry area, the darker colors here to the west, and the shear is, streaming off in this direction. This way, I know bad drawing, but um, at least on its western side, there's quite a bit of outflow, which is helping to create divergence aloft. Which I don't know. We'll have to see what the National Hurricane Center says. Just to analyze this real quick, I wanted to go over the satellite derived wind data here. This doesn't go in the middle of the screen for some reason, so This is a satellite derived wind data. You can see already winds on the north side 34 to 50 knots. On the south side, it's weaker, but almost you can get a hint of a circulation here, and it's kind of showing it further south than it might be, but in this general area here. Um, so if we look at the vorticity, convergence, divergence, yeah, convergence to surface on that blue there, divergence aloft, quite a bit of divergence aloft actually, and the vorticity max is a little bit further to the west than the convergence, but they're not too far off from being aligned. So, uh, we're gonna have to see. But it looks a lot more impressive than it did. And you see what I'm talking about with the shear values. 30 knots, 25 knots right over top of this thing. So that's what's been kind of inhibiting it from developing any faster along with its forward speed. But if it just slows down just a little bit, um, which it's forecast to do, then I don't know. I just keep saying this, but I think we got already have a tropical storm out here. So what do the models show? I'm not going to even go over the ensemble guidance because I really think that we're going to get something developed here. This is 0Z GFS, right? Has a 1003 00Z. It already has a tropical storm here, which it isn't yet, but um, hang around, go right over Dominican Republic and Haiti, and pretty quickly move off to the north. And this is a different solution than most of the other models are showing, and I'll show you that. And Dr. Levi Cohen had a good explanation about this too, and I'll explain it why the system may linger here in the Caribbean for quite a while, just depending on how strong it gets, whether it feels the the westerlies sooner than later. But I think if the GFS solution plays out, then it's more likely to move to the north quicker. All right, so it's all kind of dependent on intensity at this point, because as you know, tropical cyclones, as they get stronger, they get more vertically aligned and are more susceptible. Well, feel, let's just say, the upper level flow more than lower level, because weaker systems are not uh, don't have as much vertical structure, so they mostly go with low level winds. Once they get vertical structure, excuse me, they feel the upper level flow more. So anyway, um, this is what I'm talking about with the GFS, right? You have this is a 500 millibar mid-level heights, high pressures, low pressures. There's future Melissa. There's high pressure off in the or Mexico, and in this solution, future Melissa gets far enough north. This high pressure here. There's another. It doesn't really show much of a high pressure to the east, but before that high pressure can build in and trap it here in the Caribbean, that moves out to sea. See the high pressure builds in here to the south eventually. So it feels a weakness, feels that weakness before that high pressure can build in. So um, European model, there's the Melissa, right? We're getting to the 21st, 22nd. Well, this is 5 a.m. today. So Hazlet is a weak tropical storm. Sea high pressure aloft here. Um, must be a diurnal type cycle, but overall, it doesn't get as strong. Trapped under that high pressure. We're talking the 20 through the 26, and it's still hanging out here, which could be devastating for these areas for rainfall. Jamaica, Haiti, um, Dominican Republic. Any of these areas here should be on notice. I would say Cuba, probably not so much at this point, but we can't rule that out either. But for rainfall and potential landfall of a strong storm, depending on what happens, okay? So let's move on to the wind shear profile here. Let's just start in 8 a.m. today. 2003 tropical depression or storm. This is a GFS model. You see the shear. Although the shear is forecast to lessen, it looks like a little bit. See the shear to the north of it. And it wants to maybe develop a little high pressure over top. There's your high pressure developing here to the south. Maybe. Let me see. Anyway, it goes over the Haiti Dominican Republic, and you can see what happens. It's affected by, feels the upper level flow pretty quickly here, moves up that way. All right, so what does your AI model show? It's been pretty conservative on this. Have maybe a weak tropical storm there, but it moves it over Haiti, Jamaica, hangs it out in the Caribbean Sea, and could have devastating flooding in Haiti, Dominican Republic. It could be a real disaster. Even if we don't get a real strong storm, if it just hangs out there, we're going to have real problems there. And I'll go over the rainfall potential. Let's just say from the GFS model to see what it says about that. This is the Canadian. Canadian has it developing pretty shortly here. Moving generally in the Caribbean Sea, but keeps it trapped down in here. And this is pretty far west. Once they bring it, my goodness, once they bring it up here, right along the northeast coast. But this tells you how uncertain this is still. If we get initialization of a low level center, I would say the models will come to a better agreement. Because right now they don't have anything to work with, and we can really look at the hurricane models and other things a little bit closer. It'll help us a lot, okay? So still a lot of uncertainty. You can see by different potential tracks how the operational runs are all over the place. And I could show you all the realm of possibilities for the ensembles, but this just tells you how uncertain things are at this point. Icon model, weak tropical depression, maybe storm here, hanging out here in the Caribbean through the end of the month. And that's just bad scenario. Okay, guys. So let's look at the GFS potential rainfall here. Um, see if we can zoom in the Caribbean. All right. So this is a GFS modeled precip. If this comes to pass, this is 12, 14, 16 inches of rain potentially for, can't remember which side of Dominican Republic or Haiti, but regardless, um, the Greater Antilles may get in on this, and Cuba can't be ruled out earlier. Let's look at the European solution real quick. Go to the Western Atlantic because it keeps it further south, but you can see what it where the most precip is here. So, and when we look at the URAI, let's see what it wants to do. Not showing nearly as much precip here, but still, you get the general idea. See what it gets close to Haiti, Dominican Republic, with a bullseye, a lot of precip right here on the southern side. Jamaica could get into it as well. Canadian model. Let's go back and look at it. Zoom in the Caribbean. This is a nightmare scenario right here. You have Jamaica get inundated with rain, as well as Mexico, Cuba. Just, whew, hopefully this doesn't happen, guys. I think it also depends on where the system eventually tracks. Of course it does, but for example, because of the westerly shear, I think most of the precip, the most of the convection is going to be on the eastern side for the at least for the short to midterm. So anywhere along and to the east and to the right of the system is probably where most of the precip is going to be. Um, so that can be shown by let's look at the simulated IR here. Well, the Canadian, right? It shows it becoming a lot more coherent here in the Western Caribbean towards the end of the month. Hurricane right over top of Cuba, moving to the north. So that would be terrible. So that being said, I'm going to come back hopefully before I'm done making this video and look back on the National Hurricane Center site closer to 5 o'clock because it's like 4:20 now, and see if they have an update or they're going to do advisories for the system and hopefully provide more information before this video's out. And um, so stay tuned, and I'm going to go over the Continental U.S. forecast next. All right, so they haven't issued any, excuse me, new products this morning. So apparently they don't think that the system has a closed circulation yet, even though it's not quite 5. Usually by now they have issued a product if they're going to do it by 5 a.m. This is a 2 a.m. advisory for AL 98. 90% chance of development in 2 days. I think I would say within 12 hours or by the end of today, it'll be at least a potential tropical cyclone. if not a depression or named storm, depression or tropical storm. So moving on to the Continental U.S. satellite loop. Not a lot going on today. Excuse me for clearing my throat. I just got a lot of sinus drainage and fun stuff like that. So TMI, but sorry. Um, Overlay with the radar. Really not a lot going on. Just upper mid-level low moving through the flow here. Get mid-level water vapor loop showing what we got. Kind of a trough shearing out and one over the northeast kind of spinning around. Otherwise, a lot of dry air. Although this looks like it's going to lift out. Okay, um, so what's the flow going to look like in the coming days? It's going to be pretty progressive, right? This is the upper levels of the atmosphere. Um, I prefer to look at the mid-level flow. It's a better representation of the what's going on. You have that mid-level circulation here and off the coast, east coast. Okay, you move through time here. It kind of becomes almost negatively tilted right off the east coast. Maybe a low developing, surface slow developing off the coast here. And you see another level feature in the off the California coast. That's going to be a player in a couple days for potential severe weather out here. Let me take a drink here. Sorry, guys. You can see a potent, little small but potent short wave moving through the flow, ejects off the Rockies. Severe weather in the next 3 days, possible in this area, marginal risk. And this, it de-amplifies, but then you have another trough kind of back building here. And then you have another mid-level low feature coming down on the east side of the Rockies, right? Which is an interesting evolution. This is the European model, right? And I put very deep trough. Wow. Okay, well, um, this really has a potential to, you see Melissa here, right? And you have a high pressure off to the north of Melissa, and you have this low, cut off low here. Let's see what the evolution is here. Melissa, future Melissa gets kind of absorbed into that flow there as it lifts off to the north. If this comes to pass, we might get a surface low somewhere in this area off the southeast, and you can see a large high pressure ridge. Look at that deep flow. Although it's it looks like, let's zoom out here. Continental. See if where the flow is coming from. This is more Pacific in nature. You can see the flow here. Not really cross polar, but digging deep down here. And that's an interesting. There's Melissa, right? All right. So let's move it forward if it'll let me here. You see what happens to it. Kind of gets absorbed into that. Then we have another deep trough built off the east coast here, which would potentially be, excuse me, geez, nor'easter here. So the east coast and on the west coast here, you got a lot of ridging and potential breaking records for heat out here. And you get further out, that becomes a lot more uncertain. What's it look like at the surface? Let's go back to the Continental U.S. and the surface map. All right. Go back here. This is starting today, 5 p.m., let's just say. Low up to the north here. Kind of moving out. Pretty strong low level. Excuse me. I'm sorry, guys. Low level circulation developing up here. I'm probably going to have to stop this video soon and because I keep clearing my throat. I apologize. You have that trough ejecting off the Rockies here, that mid-level feature. And you can see the convection here on the west side of it. You'd have a low developing way down here. And that low keeps going here. Remember that trough that we saw, that feature? And looks like it's going to be potentially bring some heavy rain, much needed rain to the southeast. And I would argue maybe some severe weather. What looks like a CAD type setup overrunning maybe, which means moisture being pulled to the north, overrunning like cooler air like this. And that can be seen by the, let's see, 850 millibar heights here, maybe 925 low level heights going back. You can kind of make out a high pressure. The heights are generally going this way. Not tight gradient, but you have a broad low there, right? So in the surface high pressure. Anyway, that's kind of what we're looking at. So, you know, I think moisture wise, I know I'm focused on the southeast, but we haven't had a lot of rain and we really need it. So, yeah, that'd be good news for us anyway. We'll see how that plays out, but yeah, some enhanced flow here too. So what are the current hazards? Just some wind and freeze warnings and high wind warnings, wind advisories, flood warning. Not a lot going on today. So, all right. So temps. Let's look at the temps in the coming days here. This map doesn't like to refresh very well. You see where the warmest temps are in the south. These are high temps, right? And you can see where the highest temps are relegated to the deep south. And highs in the 70s and 80s for the most part. Northern tier highs in the 50s and 60s for most of the period. This doesn't really get out to the long range, but I'll show you that in a minute. Then we'll go look at lows here. I'm trying to get this to all load so it doesn't glitch out on me, but yeah, right, terrible. The site is not the greatest. 30s, 40s, and 60s, 50s, and 60s along the Gulf Coast for lows. Cold air in the northern tier, with warm temps building briefly into the middle part of the country and moving east, but still not overly hot at all overnight, except along the Gulf Coast, which and in Florida, which you would expect this time of year with the, right along the coastline, you have more moisture and the temps stay warmer. The Rockies is quite cold. Future temperatures and precip. Let's take a look. 6 to 10 day. Quite a lot of precip expected above normal for most of the nation, except for down here in the southwest. Um, the 6 to 10 temps. Warmer than normal for most of the nation, except for along the northwest coast. And moving into the Intermountain West, some the 8 to 14 temps. Cooler than normal expected or near normal. Equal chances along the southeast into mid-Atlantic, Ohio Valley, Lower Mississippi Valley along the northwest, and precip chances still above normal for the east likely, and more of a bullseye here of equal or below normal chances of below normal precip for a good portion of the western U.S. except for the northwest U.S. As far as severe weather goes, we now have a 5% risk of severe weather generally in this area in the central U.S. into Texas, Amarillo, Lubbock, Norman. As that shortwave ejects here, um, I really think that the outlooks of more severe weather possibilities further down the line here. When we have more certainty among models, but and I could see this uptrending depending on um, how conditions evolve here. We'll have to see, but um, well, that's it for today, guys. Hope y'all got something out of this video. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow.